Welcome to Red Book Insider, where we bring you powerful books that can change the way you think, work, and live. Today's video dives into timeless lessons you can start applying right away, and if you'd like to grab your own copy of the book, there's a link in the description. What if I told you that the secret to peace, confidence, and stronger relationships is not about doing more, fixing others, or proving yourself, but about simply letting people be who they are? No chasing, no convincing, no forcing. Just 3 powerful words. Let them. At first it sounds almost too simple, but once you start to understand it, you realize how life-changing it really is. Imagine how much stress we create for ourselves every single day trying to control other people. We want our partner to be more supportive, our boss to finally recognize our efforts, our friends to act the way we think they should. And when they don't, what happens? We get frustrated, disappointed, even resentful. The truth, which we all know deep down but try to resist, is that we cannot control other people. The only thing we ever have true control over is how we respond. That's where the let them theory comes in. When someone shows you who they are, when they behave in a way you don't like or don't expect, instead of trying to change them, argue with them, or fix them, you just let them. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them walk away. Let them underestimate you. Why? Because their behavior is about them, not about you. The moment you stop fighting reality and stop pulling on the rope of control, you free yourself. You no longer waste energy trying to twist people into the version you want them to be. Instead, you protect your peace, focus on your growth, and surround yourself with people who naturally respect and value you. Think about it like this. Every time you try to change someone, you're in a tug-of-war that can never be won. You pull, they resist, and both of you end up drained. But when you simply let go of the rope, everything shifts. Suddenly, you're no longer trapped in that exhausting battle. You've released the need to control, and you've given yourself permission to walk away or to let others reveal their true character. And once you do this, you start to see something incredible. The people who truly belong in your life don't need to be chased, begged, or manipulated. They show up, they stay, they care. And the ones who don't, you discover you never really lost anything by letting them go. This is not about giving up or being passive. It's about choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and strength over desperation. Mel Robbins herself discovered this when she realized how much of her own energy was wasted worrying about what people thought of her. Was she being included? Was she respected? Was she liked? She noticed how she constantly twisted herself into knots, trying to win approval that never actually gave her the fulfillment she wanted. Until one day she thought, what if I just let them? What if I let people exclude me if they want, underestimate me if they want, doubt me if they want? What if I stop fighting for scraps of attention and start pouring that energy back into myself? When she began practicing this simple idea, everything shifted. The right people became clearer. Her own confidence grew stronger. And she realized something most of us forget. People's actions are rarely about us. They are about who they are, what they believe, and where they are in their own journey. When you stop taking it personally and simply let them, you gain freedom. Picture life as a house with many doors. People will walk in and out, and sometimes they will leave without warning. The old you might run after them, begging them to stay or slamming the door in anger. But the let them theory teaches you something new. If they want to leave, let them. Keep the door open, because the right people won't slam it behind them. They'll stay or they'll come back willingly. And the ones who go and never return, they were never meant to stay in your space anyway. There's a deep psychology behind why this works. Humans crave freedom. Nobody likes being pushed, forced, or controlled. When you let people be who they are, you not only give them freedom, but you also build respect for yourself. And here's the magic part. By no longer tying your worth to their behavior, you create unshakable trust in yourself. You learn to say, I am enough whether you approve of me or not. That kind of self-trust is the foundation of peace. And yet, I know what you might be thinking. It sounds simple when you say it out loud, but what happens when it's your best friend ignoring your calls? What happens when your partner keeps breaking promises or your boss criticizes you unfairly? That's where this theory becomes truly powerful, because it's not just an idea, it's a tool. And when you start applying it in real situations, the results are so surprising that they feel almost magical. In the next part of this journey, we'll break down how to actually practice the let them theory in 5 core areas of life: relationships, work, friendships, family, and even strangers on the internet. And once you hear these examples, you'll never look at conflict the same way again. In fact, you may even find yourself smiling at situations that used to drive you crazy, because now you'll understand the secret power of letting them. When you first hear about the let them theory, it sounds so obvious you almost laugh. Of course, people are who they are, of course you can't change them. But the truth is, most of us spend years of our lives trying to do exactly that. We waste time replaying conversations in our heads, wondering how we could have convinced someone to see things our way, or feeling guilty for not pleasing everyone. That inner battle drains us more than we realize. The let them theory ends the fight. It hands you back your energy and says, instead of controlling them, use this energy to build the life you actually want. One of the first places this idea shows up is in our closest relationships. Imagine you text a friend to hang out and they don't reply. You feel hurt. You wonder what you did wrong. You think about sending another message just to get their attention. But what if, instead of spiraling, you simply let them? Let them not reply. Let them show you how much they value the friendship. Their silence is not a puzzle you need to solve. It's information. It tells you where you stand. The let them theory is not about ignoring people. It's about watching what they actually do and choosing your peace over chasing them. Take another example. Your partner promises they'll help with something important, but they forget again. The old version of you might nag, argue, or carry resentment for days. But the let them approach says, let them show you what kind of partner they are. And then you decide if that's the relationship you want to stay in. You're not trying to fix them or force them to change. You're observing, accepting reality, and then choosing your next move from a place of clarity. This is where the real strength of the theory lies. It shifts you from being reactive to being intentional. It even works at work. Maybe your boss constantly overlooks your contributions. You could get angry, gossip with co-workers, and let resentment eat you alive. Or you could let them underestimate you. Let them miss your value. Because while they're doing that, you're sharpening your skills, building your portfolio, and preparing to take those talents somewhere they will be recognized. Instead of giving your power away, you take it back. You stop begging for recognition from people who aren't willing to give it. And when the right opportunity arrives, you're ready. This idea is so powerful because it gives you a simple script for moments that would otherwise spiral into anxiety. Your family criticizes your choices. Let them. A colleague spreads rumors about you. Let them. A stranger online leaves a rude comment. Let them. Every time you use those 2 words, you remind yourself, I don't need to control this. Their behavior says more about them than it does about me. And the best part is, once you let go of trying to manage them, you suddenly have more mental space to manage yourself. Of course, letting people be who they are doesn't mean you tolerate abuse or accept mistreatment. Quite the opposite. When you let people show their true selves, you stop making excuses for them. You stop hoping they'll magically change someday. You stop wasting years on promises that never materialize. And that clarity gives you the courage to set boundaries, to walk away, or to demand better. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Think of it like standing in front of a mirror. If the reflection shows something you don't like, breaking the mirror won't fix it. All you can do is accept what the mirror shows and then decide what you want to do next. People are the same way. Their actions reflect who they are in this moment. You don't need to smash the mirror or beg it to change. You just need to look clearly, accept what you see, and then choose what's best for you. The more you practice this, the lighter life feels. Suddenly, you're not chasing explanations or begging for closure. You're not tied up in knots trying to make people approve of you. Instead, you're calm, steady, and clear. And people notice. They start to wonder what's different about you. Why aren't you reacting the way you used to? Why aren't you trying so hard? The truth is, When you let them, you stop giving them the power to shake your peace. And ironically, that makes you more magnetic. Because nothing is more attractive than a person who trusts themselves enough not to chase. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The let them theory doesn't just apply to people who hurt you or ignore you. It also applies to people who surprise you in positive ways. When someone supports you, let them. When someone shows up for you, let them. When someone believes in you even more than you believe in yourself, let them. Too often we block kindness because we don't feel worthy of it. But letting people love you is just as important as letting people leave. So how do you start building this mindset every day? How do you catch yourself in those moments of panic, when your mind wants to overreact and instead remind yourself to simply let them? The answer lies in practice. And in the next part, we'll explore small, practical exercises that can rewire your brain to let go more easily. They're simple, but once you try them, you'll notice just how much lighter your days can feel. The first exercise is awareness. Most of us live on autopilot, reacting instantly when people disappoint us, without even realizing what's happening. The next time someone ignores you, criticizes you, or fails to meet your expectations, pause. Instead of rushing into defense mode, simply take a breath and silently repeat the words, "Let them." This tiny pause is the difference between losing your peace and keeping it. It shifts your attention away from trying to control them and back onto yourself. You begin to see their actions for what they are, information, not a personal attack. Another exercise is observation. Start watching people closely, not to judge them, but to understand them. If a friend constantly cancels plans instead of feeling rejected, let them. Let them show you how they handle commitment. If a coworker always takes credit for your ideas, let them. Let them reveal their character. You don't need to expose them or fight them every time. Their behavior is a mirror. And the more you observe without reacting, the clearer that mirror becomes. You'll be surprised how often people tell you exactly who they are, if you're just willing to step back and watch. The third practice is journaling. At the end of the day, write down moments when you remembered to let them. Maybe you chose not to send that angry reply. Maybe you let a family member complain without defending yourself. Or maybe you simply accepted that a friend is distant right now. By writing these down, you train your brain to notice the wins. You'll start to feel proud of how much calmer and stronger you've become. It's proof that you're no longer controlled by other people's actions. You can also practice with strangers, because they're often the easiest place to start. Imagine you're driving and someone cuts you off in traffic. The old version of you might have shouted, honked, or carried the anger for hours, but with the let them mindset, you smile and say, let them. Let them rush, let them drive recklessly. It's not your problem. Or maybe someone online leaves a negative comment. Instead of obsessing over it, you say, let them. Let them project their issues onto the internet. You don't need to pick up what they're throwing down. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes. Over time, it's like building a muscle. At first, letting go feels impossible. You want to grab the rope, pull harder, and force people to act the way you expect. But each time you choose to let them, you're strengthening the muscle of peace. And eventually it becomes your default. You don't have to remind yourself anymore. It just happens. One of the most surprising outcomes of this practice is how people start reacting to you differently. When you stop chasing them, they feel the shift. You're no longer desperate for their approval, and that changes the entire dynamic. Sometimes they lean in closer, wondering why you're suddenly so calm and confident. Sometimes they drift further away because they realize they no longer have control over your emotions. Either way, you win because you've stopped handing over your power. There's also a deeper benefit. When you let others be who they are, you start giving yourself the same freedom. You realize you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to fit everyone's expectations. You don't need to bend yourself into shapes just to be liked. If others can be flawed, distracted, and human, so can you. And that realization feels like a breath of fresh air. It's like you've been carrying a heavy backpack of expectations for years, and suddenly, you set it down. But let's be clear, this isn't always easy. Sometimes the people you have to let go of are the ones closest to you. A best friend who's drifting away, a partner who doesn't match your energy, a family member who refuses to change. Those moments cut deep. They test your courage, but they also reveal the truth. Forcing someone to stay will never create real connection. Letting them leave is the only way to find out who's truly meant for you. In fact, that's one of the most profound lessons of the let them theory. People who are right for you don't need convincing. They show up without being asked. They respect your boundaries without being reminded. They love you without needing a script. When you let people reveal themselves, you save yourself from years of pain trying to force connections that were never real in the first place. So, the next time someone disappoints you, remember this. You don't need to chase, argue, or explain. Just let them, and in that moment, you'll discover not only who they are, but who you are becoming. Stronger, calmer, freer. But what about the times when letting them feels like losing? When the silence is painful, or the rejection stings? How do you keep from falling into loneliness or bitterness? In the next part, we'll explore how the let them theory helps you turn those painful moments into powerful growth, and why sometimes the people who walk away are actually doing you the biggest favor of all. When someone you care about pulls away, it's natural to feel a sting. Our first instinct is to tighten our grip, to call more, text more, explain ourselves, and try to fix the gap. But here's the paradox. The tighter you hold, the faster they slip away. The let them theory asks you to do the opposite. When someone drifts, let them. Don't chase, don't beg, don't bargain. Just breathe and let them move. Because if they truly value you, they'll circle back. And if they don't, their absence is the gift of clarity, showing you where to stop investing your precious energy. At first, this feels brutal. Your mind screams, but what if they never come back? What if I'm alone? That fear is powerful, but it's also an illusion. Because every time someone leaves your life, space opens up for someone new to enter, someone who's more aligned with who you're becoming. Think about it. If you fill your days chasing people who don't want to stay, how will you ever have room for the ones who do? Letting go is not loss, it's preparation. There's also a strange kind of freedom that comes when you stop resisting. The energy you once wasted on controlling others suddenly flows back into your own growth. Instead of obsessing over why someone won't treat you the way you deserve, you start asking, how can I treat myself better? What can I do with this extra time and energy? That shift changes everything. The emptiness transforms into possibility. Here's a powerful image. Imagine you're holding a rope, and someone on the other end is pulling away. The harder they pull, the tighter you grip, and soon your hands are burning. The pain is unbearable, but you're too scared to let go. Now picture what happens when you finally release the rope. Yes, it stings at first, but the pain fades quickly, and your hands are free. That's the let them theory in action. Letting go hurts for a moment, but clinging hurts forever. This is especially true in relationships. How many people waste years trying to change their partner, hoping that one day they'll wake up more loving, more attentive, more responsible? But people don't change because you nag, cry, or sacrifice yourself. They change only if they want to. And if they don't, you have two choices. Accept them as they are, or let them go. Either choice is better than slowly drowning in unmet expectations. Another painful truth is that some people actually thrive on your reaction. They push your buttons, not because they're evil, but because your reaction feeds their sense of control. The moment you stop reacting, you starve that cycle. Suddenly the game is over. They may get louder at first, desperate to provoke the old you, but eventually they give up, because your peace is no longer for sale. And the funny thing is, the less you respond, the more respect you earn. Silence, in many cases, is louder than words. Now, none of this means you shut down or stop caring. The let them theory is not about coldness or indifference. It's about boundaries. It's about saying, I care about you, but I won't destroy my own peace to control you. That's love without chains. And ironically, when you stop forcing, the love that remains is purer, because it's freely chosen on both sides. This mindset doesn't just apply to people, it works for life's disappointments too. Didn't get the job you wanted? Let them. Let the company hire someone else. Didn't get invited to the party? Let them gather without you. Every closed door is a sign that something better might be waiting. The universe has a funny way of redirecting us, but we only notice when we stop fighting reality. Of course, this is easier said than done. Some nights the loneliness hits hard. Some mornings you wake up with questions that won't stop spinning in your head. That's when the let them theory becomes more than a phrase. It becomes a practice of trust. Trust that letting go will create space for better. Trust that your worth doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. Trust that life is unfolding in your favor, even when you can't see the plan. Think about the people who are still in your life today, not the ones who left, but the ones who stayed. They're the proof of this truth. You didn't have to beg them, you didn't have to twist yourself into knots to keep them close. They are here because they want to be, and that is the most powerful kind of bond, voluntary, not forced. So here's the challenge. The next time someone disappoints you, pause before reacting. Whisper to yourself, let them. Let them reveal who they are. Let them walk their path, and let yourself walk yours. Because sometimes the people who walk away aren't your loss, they're your liberation. But what about the people you can't simply walk away from, like family, co-workers, or long-term partners? What happens when letting them means living with their flaws day after day? In the next part, we'll dive into how the let them theory works in close, unavoidable relationships, and why the most difficult people in your life may actually be your greatest teachers. When it comes to family, partners, or co-workers, walking away isn't always an option. You can't let them disappear from your life entirely, but you can apply the same mindset in a subtler way. This is where the let them theory becomes more challenging and also more powerful. Take family, for example. We all carry expectations of what family should be: supportive, loving, understanding. But reality often falls short. Maybe your parents never quite understood your dreams. Maybe your siblings criticize instead of encourage. Maybe your relatives judge the way you live. Here's the hard truth. Wishing they were different won't make it so. The more you argue, explain, or beg them to see your side, the more drained you become. The let them theory invites you to stop fighting that battle. Let them misunderstand you. Let them disapprove. Let them talk behind your back. Their opinion doesn't define your reality. This doesn't mean you cut ties with everyone who disagrees. It means you stop investing your emotional energy in trying to fix them. You protect your peace. You show up when you can, you keep boundaries where you must, and you stop expecting someone to become the version of themselves that exists only in your imagination. When you stop expecting, you stop being disappointed. The same principle applies at work. Maybe you've got a boss who never notices your effort, or a co-worker who always takes credit. Your instinct is to push harder, to prove your worth, to demand recognition, but that only leaves you more exhausted. Instead, let them overlook you. Let them underestimate you. And while they're busy missing your value, quietly keep building your skills, your reputation, and your opportunities. Eventually, the right people, the ones who actually matter, will notice. And when they do, you'll be ready. In relationships, this shift can be life-changing. How often do couples argue not about what happened, but about trying to change each other? One partner nags, the other resists. One pushes, the other pulls. It becomes a tug-of-war where no one wins. But what happens when you drop the rope? Suddenly the tension disappears. Instead of trying to sculpt your partner into your ideal, you let them be who they are. If that works for you, you stay. If it doesn't, you leave. It sounds simple, but it saves years of resentment. The let them theory doesn't mean tolerating abuse or staying silent when your needs matter. It means recognizing the difference between boundaries and control. Boundaries are about protecting yourself. I won't accept being spoken to like that. Control is about forcing others. You must speak to me differently. The first is healthy, the second is impossible. You can control your choices, you cannot control their behavior. And when you stop trying, you free yourself. Here's where psychology comes in. People tend to resist when they feel controlled. The more you push, the more they push back. But when you let them be, something unexpected often happens. Without the pressure, they sometimes adjust naturally. Not because you forced them, but because the freedom you gave made space for change. It's a paradox. Letting go often influences more than holding on. Think of it like a garden. You can water your plants, give them sunlight, and pull out the weeds. But you can't force a flower to bloom before it's ready. If you tug on the petals, you destroy it. People are the same. You can create conditions where growth is possible, but you can't dictate the timeline. Let them bloom or not. Your job is to tend your own soil. This approach transforms even the hardest relationships. Instead of constant disappointment, you start to see people clearly. You stop confusing their choices with your value. You begin to understand that their actions reflect them, not you. That's a liberating shift. The father who never praised you? That's about his emotional limits, not your worth. The partner who refuses to change? That's about their readiness, not your desirability. The co-worker who gossips? That's about their insecurity, not your reputation. The let them theory, when applied in close relationships, doesn't erase pain. It doesn't guarantee harmony. But it does protect your peace. And peace, once you taste it, becomes priceless. Imagine walking into a family gathering and not bracing yourself for judgment. Imagine sitting through a meeting without obsessing over the co-worker's digs. Imagine being in a relationship where you accept, without clinging, without demanding, without fear. That's not indifference, it's strength. But here's the deeper question. What about you? We've talked so much about letting others be, but what happens when you turn the mirror inward? Are there parts of yourself you've been fighting, denying, or trying to control? Can the let them theory be applied within? The answer might surprise you, and it could be the most powerful application of all. We've spent so much time talking about letting others be who they are, but here's a twist that most people never consider. What if you applied the let them theory to yourself? Think about how often you've tried to force yourself into shapes that didn't fit. You push to be more productive, more confident, more social, more perfect. You compare yourself to people online who seem to have it all figured out, and you demand that you keep up. And when you fall short, you beat yourself up, thinking discipline or willpower will fix it. But what if the real freedom comes not from pushing harder, but from letting yourself be? Let yourself rest. Let yourself feel sad. Let yourself be awkward in new situations. Let yourself stumble when you're learning something new. Let yourself make mistakes without turning them into a judgment about your entire character. Just as you can't control others, you can't bully yourself into becoming someone you're not ready to be. Growth doesn't come from shame, it comes from patience. This doesn't mean giving up on your goals. It means acknowledging that self-compassion often fuels progress better than self-criticism. Picture a child learning to walk. You wouldn't scream at them for falling. You'd cheer them on, pick them up, and encourage another try. But as adults, we forget that kindness works better than cruelty, even toward ourselves. The let them theory, turned inward, invites you to treat yourself with that same patience. There's a subtle but powerful shift here. Instead of saying, I need to stop being anxious, you say, I feel anxious right now, let me. Instead of, I shouldn't be tired, you say, I'm tired today, let me rest. This doesn't lock you into weakness, it acknowledges reality. And when you acknowledge reality, you stop wasting energy fighting it. That energy can then go toward healing, creating, or simply breathing. One of the biggest traps we fall into is believing we're supposed to be on all the time. Productive, positive, polished. Social media only makes it worse, with endless reminders of what everyone else seems to be achieving. But the truth is, nobody is thriving every moment. Everyone has days when they're messy, confused, or overwhelmed. The difference is, some people hide it better. By letting yourself be, you break free from the illusion that you must constantly perform. This self-acceptance also makes you braver. When you're no longer terrified of imperfection, you stop holding back. You try new things without demanding immediate mastery. You speak up even if your voice shakes. You pursue dreams even if failure is possible, because you've accepted that failure is part of the process, not the end of it. Let yourself be human, and suddenly being human doesn't feel like such a burden. And here's the deeper psychological truth. When you stop resisting your emotions, they lose their grip. Anxiety grows when you try to suppress it. Anger explodes when you bottle it up. Sadness lingers when you tell yourself you shouldn't feel it, but when you say, let me feel this, the storm usually passes faster. Emotions are like waves. They rise, crest, and fall. Fighting them only drags you under. Allowing them lets you float back to shore. Now imagine the peace of combining both sides of the theory. Let others be who they are. Let yourself be who you are. Suddenly, life feels less like a battlefield and more like an open road. There are still bumps and detours, but you're no longer exhausted from wrestling everything and everyone into your control. Instead, you have the energy to move forward, to build what matters, and to actually enjoy the journey. This doesn't mean life becomes effortless. The challenges remain. People will still disappoint you, you will still disappoint yourself. But the difference is in your response. Instead of collapsing into frustration, you meet it with acceptance. Instead of spiraling into self-blame, you meet it with compassion. Instead of fighting reality, you work with it. And that shift, quiet as it may seem, changes everything. But here's a question worth holding. If letting others and yourself just be creates so much peace, does it mean you should stop striving altogether? If you're supposed to let things happen, where does ambition fit in? Is there still room for goals, dreams, and big plans? Or does the let them theory tell you to surrender completely? The answer might surprise you. So here's the big question we left hanging. If you embrace the let them theory, if you stop forcing and controlling, does that mean ambition dies? Does it mean you give up on goals and dreams because you're just supposed to let life happen? Absolutely not. In fact, the opposite is true. Letting go of control doesn't kill ambition, it refines it. Think about the difference between forcing something and flowing towards something. When you're forcing, you're usually running on fear. You hustle because you're scared of failing. You cling to relationships because you're scared of being alone. You chase approval because you're scared of not being enough. That kind of ambition feels heavy, desperate, exhausting. And it rarely delivers true fulfillment. But when you let people and situations reveal themselves naturally, you suddenly free up energy. You're no longer burning it all trying to control the uncontrollable. That energy can then be poured into building what actually matters to you. This is where ambition finds its healthiest form. You set goals not to prove your worth, but to expand your life. You work hard, not because you're scared of what happens if you don't, but because creating something excites you. You pursue dreams, not because you're desperate to outrun judgment, but because they light you up inside. The let them theory doesn't kill drive. It clears out the fear-driven noise so you can hear your real desires. And something powerful happens when your ambition shifts from fear-based to freedom-based. People notice. Opportunities flow. Not because the universe magically rewards you for chilling out, but because you're showing up differently. Instead of gripping tightly, you're open. Instead of obsessing over outcomes, you're present with the process. That presence makes your work better. It makes your relationships stronger. It makes your energy magnetic. Here's a concrete example. Imagine you're working on a business idea. In the old way, you'd stress over every detail, trying to guarantee success before you even start. You'd probably delay, procrastinate, or burn out from overthinking. With the let them mindset, you still work hard, but you let the process unfold. You test, you learn, you adapt. You stop demanding perfection and start valuing progress. That shift doesn't weaken your ambition, it accelerates it. And here's the paradox. When you're no longer desperate to prove yourself, you often end up achieving more, because you're not weighed down by the pressure of control. You're not wasting time chasing people who don't want what you're offering. You're not exhausting yourself trying to fit into spaces that don't welcome you. Instead, you're moving toward the doors that actually open, the people who actually get it, the opportunities that actually align. This is why some people seem lucky. It's not that life is handing them everything. They've simply stopped wrestling with resistance. They're not trying to swim against the current, they're steering with it. They let people show who they are. They let situations unfold. They let themselves try, fail, learn, and grow. That openness creates momentum, and momentum attracts more opportunities than force ever could. Now, this doesn't mean you'll never feel fear or doubt. Of course you will. Ambition is still challenging, and growth still asks you to step outside your comfort zone. But with this mindset, fear becomes a companion, not a master. You can say, I'm nervous about this presentation, let me feel nervous and let me do it anyway. You stop waiting to feel fearless before you act, and you start acting while you're human. That is the sweet spot where real progress happens, and here's the secret most people miss. Letting doesn't mean doing nothing. Letting means you stop fighting the wrong battles so you can fight the right ones. You stop fighting for the approval of people who will never give it. You stop fighting against emotions that are natural to feel. You stop fighting against reality as it is. And with all that energy freed up, you have more strength to fight for your goals, your values, your future. So no, ambition doesn't die here. It comes alive, it becomes lighter, cleaner, truer. And once you taste that kind of ambition, you'll never want to go back to the exhausting, fear-driven kind again. But there's still one more layer we haven't touched. We've talked about letting others be, letting yourself be, and even letting your ambition flow naturally. But what about relationships? The close ones, the ones that matter most. How do you apply the let them theory without pushing people away, without seeming cold or detached? How do you let in love, friendship, and family while still holding on to connection? That's where things get even more interesting. So here's the puzzle. If the let them theory tells us to release control and allow people to be who they are, what happens when those people are the ones we love most? Family, partners, close friends, these are relationships where connection matters deeply. How do you let without losing? How do you practice freedom without creating distance? This is where the theory shows its real depth, because letting doesn't mean abandoning. It means respecting, even in love. Think about it. Most tension in close relationships comes from unspoken expectations. We want our partner to think like us, our family to approve of us, our friends to support every choice we make. When they don't, frustration builds. We argue, we push, we try to convince, and sometimes all of that energy leaves us more disconnected than we were in the first place. The let them mindset suggests a radical shift. Instead of trying to change them, try letting them. Let them have their opinions, let them make their choices, let them express themselves in their way. This doesn't mean silence when something matters to you. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or abuse. It means removing the heavy weight of expectation that the other person should behave exactly as you'd prefer. For example, let's say you tell your dream to a family member and they don't cheer the way you hoped. Instead of spiraling into hurt or resentment, you remind yourself, let them react how they react. Their reaction belongs to them, not to you. You can still love them, still love yourself, and still pursue your dream. And something incredible happens when you apply this in close relationships. The bond gets lighter. You stop suffocating each other with shoulds. You create space for them to be themselves, space for you to breathe, space for the relationship to grow naturally. Love isn't about cloning yourself into someone else. It's about building a connection where difference can exist without fear. Of course, the fear here is real. Many people resist this idea because they think, if I let them be, they'll drift away. If I stop controlling, I'll lose them. But consider this. Is a relationship really strong if it only survives under control? Is it really love if it depends on constant pressure? When you practice letting in love, you give the relationship the chance to reveal its true strength. If it grows authentically. If it fades, it was never meant to last in the form you hoped. Either way, you win because you get truth, not illusion. Now picture a couple where one partner embraces this theory. Instead of nagging, they allow. Instead of expecting perfection, they accept humanity. Instead of demanding alignment on every opinion, they welcome difference. What usually happens is surprising. The other partner starts to relax. They feel less judged, less pressured, more free. And ironically, that freedom often deepens the bond. When people feel safe to be themselves, they often choose connection more willingly. The same works in friendships. Sometimes friends grow in different directions. One becomes more career-focused, the other more family-centered. Old versions of ourselves want to drag the friendship back to what it used to be. But letting means allowing it to evolve. Maybe you see each other less. Maybe the conversations shift. But the affection can remain if you don't choke it with expectation. That way, when you do meet, it's genuine joy, not obligation. Family too becomes lighter with this mindset. Parents may never fully understand their children's choices. Siblings may always see the world differently. Extended family may always hold opinions you don't share. You can waste years trying to argue them into agreement, or you can let them be. Let them think what they think. Let them live how they live. You still get to choose how much time you spend, how much influence you allow, but you stop carrying the exhausting burden of needing their approval. And here's the most liberating part. When you stop trying to change the people closest to you, you stop waiting on them to change before you can feel okay. You reclaim your emotional freedom. You realize love doesn't require control. Connection doesn't require sameness. Respect doesn't require constant agreement. This is where relationships start to feel like home instead of a battlefield. But here's where the story takes another turn. Because while letting brings peace, it also brings clarity. Sometimes when you let someone truly be themselves, you realize they're not healthy for you. They're not aligned with your growth. They're not capable of giving love or respect in the way you need. Letting doesn't only reveal harmony, it reveals truth. And when the truth isn't what you hoped for, you face another question. Do you stay or do you go? Do you keep pouring into a bond that drains you? Or do you step away to protect your own peace? That decision is one of the hardest parts of the let them theory and one of the most powerful. So let's face it. Sometimes when you let people be exactly who they are, you see truths that are hard to accept. You realize that someone you love doesn't respect you. You see that a friend drains your energy more than they uplift you. You recognize that a family member continues to cross your boundaries no matter how clear you make them. The let them theory doesn't mean ignoring these realities. It means seeing them clearly, without the filter of your hopes or your attempts to change them. And then, with courage, deciding what to do next. This is the moment where many people get stuck. They think, if I let go, I'll be alone. If I leave this relationship, I'll lose too much history. If I cut ties with this person, what will others say? But here's the truth. Staying tied to someone who continually disrespects your peace is far lonelier than standing on your own. Being surrounded by the wrong people creates more emptiness than solitude ever could. Letting them be who they are also means letting yourself choose who you allow in your life. Imagine it like a garden. Every plant has its own growth pattern. Some flourish, some take too much space, some drain nutrients from the soil. If you keep every plant, no matter how unhealthy, your whole garden suffers. But if you allow yourself to remove the weeds, to trim what's overgrown, you give space for the healthiest plants to thrive. Relationships work the same way. Letting isn't only about acceptance, it's also about pruning. You honor people for who they are, but you don't sacrifice your soil for their sake. The question then becomes, how do you let go without bitterness? How do you walk away from a friend, a partner, or even a family member and still carry peace instead of resentment? The answer lies in reframing. Instead of thinking, they failed me, you remind yourself, they showed me who they are. Instead of, I wasted years, you tell yourself, I learned what I will no longer accept. Instead of clinging to anger, you hold gratitude for the clarity. That shift changes the emotional weight completely. You don't carry the story of betrayal. You carry the story of growth. It's also worth noticing that letting someone go doesn't always mean forever. Sometimes distance creates space for transformation. A partner you step away from today may grow and return tomorrow in a healthier form. A friend you release may later reach back out with a new understanding. A family member may soften after time apart. But even if they don't, you're still free. You've chosen peace without waiting on someone else's timeline. And here's another twist. Sometimes the hardest person to let go of is the version of yourself who tolerated less than you deserved. That old self who accepted mistreatment, who stayed quiet when boundaries were crossed, who tried to earn love by shrinking. The let them theory challenges you not only to let others be who they are, but to let yourself grow beyond who you were. That's where the deepest liberation lies. Think about a time when you clung to someone who no longer fit your path. Did it bring you peace, or did it keep you stuck in cycles of hurt? Now imagine if you had simply let them be, and then stepped forward into a new season. You might have felt grief, yes, but you also would have felt a lightness, a sense of self-respect, a doorway opening towards something better. That's the gift hidden in the pain of letting go. It clears the way for new connections that align with your truth. And maybe that's the scariest but most beautiful part of this whole theory. By letting others be, you eventually find out who truly belongs. Not because you forced them to fit your expectations, but because they showed up as themselves and it matched who you've become. Those are the bonds that last, the ones that feel effortless, the ones that nourish instead of drain. But here's where the real test begins. What about situations where you can't simply walk away? What about the co-worker who frustrates you daily, the boss who doesn't value you, the neighbor who constantly oversteps, the relative you can't avoid at gatherings? You can't cut every tie. You can't vanish from every environment. So, how do you apply the let them theory when leaving isn't an option? The answer might surprise you. Sometimes the people you can't avoid are the ones who test you the most. It could be a colleague who constantly undermines you, a family member who criticizes everything you do, or a friend who never truly listens. The let them theory doesn't mean you cut every tie or walk away from every relationship. Instead, it means you protect your own energy while allowing them to be who they are. You no longer try to fix them, you no longer exhaust yourself in arguments, and you no longer base your peace of mind on whether they change or not. You accept that some people may never see your worth, and that's okay. The real freedom comes when you no longer need them to. Mel Robbins explains that true strength isn't in controlling the situation, it's in controlling your reaction. Imagine someone trying to drag you into drama, and instead of fighting back, you calmly let them spiral while you remain steady. That's the power of choosing peace over chaos. It doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're wise enough to understand that not every battle deserves your energy. The let them theory is really about courage. The courage to let go, the courage to trust yourself, and the courage to live without needing the approval of others. It's about realizing that your time and energy are your most valuable assets, and you get to decide who and what deserves them. When you fully embrace this, life becomes lighter, freer, and far more joyful. And now, as we close this journey through the book, I want you to ask yourself, where in your life are you still trying too hard to control the uncontrollable? Who are you still waiting on to change, to understand, to accept you? What if you finally let them just be? Imagine the peace, the freedom, and the confidence that could bring into your life. That's the gift this book is offering. If you found this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts or experiences, and of course subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more life-changing book reviews and summaries. And if you'd like to get your own copy of The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins and dive even deeper into these powerful ideas, I've left my Amazon link in the description and pinned comment. Go check it out. Thank you for watching, and remember, let them and free yourself.